One of the most negative things that are talked about during unlimited PTO is that there's a lot of peer pressure. You know, I took 3 days off this week, and so like now I feel like I can't take any time off for like weeks and weeks.
I'm Scott Hess, tax and business consultant.
I'm John Barton, small business owner. Remember the tortoise and the hare? Slow and steady wins the race.
We started Turtlesmith to help people start small businesses, providing information and resources to small business owners and entrepreneurs.
Build a solid foundation and forge your dreams.
This is always annoying to ask, but if you're liking this content, please like and subscribe. It's the best way for us to get more followers and more people engaged in this great business content. You can also follow us on all socials at TurtlesmithOK and find us at turtlesmith.com.
Please like and subscribe.
All right, back for another one.
Yeah, it feels like this week went by in like minutes.
Very fast, very fast. Well, this episode kind of ends our little 4-arc series. We did hiring, firing, salaries, and now we're going to talk a little bit about benefits.
Okay.
So what do you got for us this week, Calvin?
This is why unlimited PTO is a scam. Hey boss, I want to take a 2-week vacation and I know that we can take as many days off as we want. I know it says that in the contract and probably a great reason why you applied for this job, but I actually have the authority to decide when you can take a vacation. So vacation denied. Okay, well this has happened way too many times, so I'm going to quit. And you're responsible for paying me my accrued PTO I never got to use. Actually, we're not. See, because when you have unlimited PTO, it doesn't accrue. So it has no value when you leave. We're not paying you anything. Oh, and fun fact, people with unlimited PTO on average take less days off.
So yeah, in general, unlimited PTO is kind of a scam. We used to have it here at the office because I thought it was great until I started reading more articles about it, and I noticed that the employees that were working for me rarely took time off with the unlimited PTO. Like one of our employees only took 2 days off in a year, and I was like, you got to take a vacation, take some time off, relax, you know. But with unlimited PTO, people get to think a little nervous about taking time off.
Well, it feels like a trick, I think, you know. Just like you said, like she said, if it's unlimited, there's no value to it.
Right. That is one of the parts of the kind of scam. A lot of places, especially when there's states with employment contracts and stuff, you have to pay out the PTO that has accrued by the employee. And if you have unlimited PTO, there's no value, so you don't have to pay it out.
Yeah.
So it's
kind of like
a scam.
these lifetime warranties sometimes, you know, are
right.
kind of scammy. You know, they have so many conditions in the fine print.
Yeah.
And if you didn't like fulfill these conditions exactly, like you didn't send in your receipt with the exact amount, the time of day, and the blood types of all the people you interacted with, then the warranty is void.
Yeah.
You know, and I try to explain that to some people sometimes when one of my competitors puts up one of these worthless warranties, I call them, right? And people, you know, they don't get it sometimes.
It's a good analogy because unlimited PTO is pretty much worthless. You're going to end up taking a lot less time off than if you just had 3 weeks or 2 weeks or whatever a standard is. And
then the question is, what happens if you do it, though? What
Yeah,
happens if
you
you
look
do
back.
take unlimited PTO?
Yeah, there's a lot of peer pressure is one of the most common, one of the most negative things that are talked about during unlimited PTO is that there's a lot of peer pressure. You know, I took 3 days off this week, and so like now I feel like I can't take any time off for like weeks and weeks.
I feel like it has to be tied with, as we talked about in the previous episode, it has to be tied with finishing your work. You know, getting your work done.
Yeah.
In some way, like it has to be project driven in some way. You know, because if you're in a position where your work, other people's work is dependent on what you're doing, then I can see the peer pressure aspect of it really coming into play, right? You're just not around. They can't get their work done because you're not getting your work done,
right? That
sort of thing. So I think that for this not to be scammy, it also needs to have some rules applied to it. Unlimited can't mean unlimited. It has to mean limited to getting your work done. You know, like when your work's done or you're on track, you know, or you're able to come in under deadline, then sure, take as much time off as you want. Like we just discussed, you said you got a guy that works at the golf course every day.
Yeah, so I know a couple people who work in sales, and the unlimited PTO works for them because they're basically paid mostly on commission. They have a base salary, but they don't need to be in the office. They don't need to be doing stuff, and nobody else is depending on their work.
Right.
So they're just getting paid for what they sell, and they can sell on the phone, on the road, away from the office. So it works well there. Netflix is also very famous for having unlimited PTO, but they're kind of a big creative firm. I don't think the accountants who need to make sure to have things in on deadlines are taking advantage of that PTO as much as the creative people are.
Well, you remember Asia? You met her. She works for a virtual reality company, and she does like dance routines for them and things like that. And she literally can work from anywhere.
Right.
So whenever she visits us, she's taking her paid time off essentially, but she still works every day. She'll get up and she'll attend a meeting in VR.
Yeah.
Or she'll actually go into VR and do work. And yeah, she'll be not accessible to us for a couple hours, but once she's done, then she's done for the day and she's got the rest of the day to do whatever she wants.
Yeah. So in certain industries it works, but I think a lot of people abuse that. They put the unlimited PTO, but they don't really mean you can just take it whenever. Like that video showed, the manager has to approve it, and they rarely do. There's no value associated with it. And then her last comment,
kind of like your miles that you never get,
right,
that are always blocked out.
Her last comment was absolutely correct. Is that many studies have shown that people with unlimited PTO take far less time than people with standard. So if you're an employer, you should have a set time off policy. Now here, I think we do 2 or 3 weeks, and depending on how long you've worked, up to like a maximum of 4, which I think is pretty standard for larger companies and professional organizations. If you're running a bar or a restaurant, you probably have a different PTO schedule, but it's different kind of industry-wide, but also countrywide. U.S. has like the worst PTO minimums.
Well, I worked in Germany. My first job that I got in Germany after I got out of the military, I worked for Kimberly-Clark. They make, for those of you who don't know, they make Kleenex. They make all kinds of paper products. But I was on the line making Kleenex. I was not a union employee. I had to be there a year to be even considered to be in the union. But starting out, I got 6 weeks of vacation. I got 30 days of paid vacation.
Yeah.
But weekends were not counted, so it worked out to be 30 days. It worked out to be 6 weeks of paid vacation.
Right.
I got unlimited sick days. If I got sick, then as long as the doctor said you're sick, then you're sick. They can't fire you.
Right.
If I would have went over 6 months, then they could have hired somebody to replace me. But then when I was better, they would have to give me my job back.
Yeah. That was in Germany?
In Germany.
Yeah, they have the European Union itself kind of has some pretty, great employee laws. But Calvin's got a map up here for us, the list of minimum annual leave, and we're the only country that I think has no mandatory vacation. Maybe like one of those in the Middle East, but...
Yeah, that's what it looks like if you go through the chart there.
Even China has 1 to 5 days of minimum mandatory vacation, but you can see a lot of these countries are in the 16 to 20. Especially in Europe. Europe is almost all 16 to 20, 21 to 22, or some countries even have 23 to 28 as the minimum.
Notice that even Africa is better than we are.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, almost every African country has a better one than the U.S. The U.S. has, I think, the worst vacation policy.
What is the one in dark blue up at the top, though? Who's that?
That's Greenland.
Is that Greenland? That's Greenland, or is that Iceland?
Well, that's Greenland. The little one next to it's Iceland.
Really?
We're having a geography lesson here. No, down to the left.
The big one is Greenland?
Yeah, that's Greenland.
The one that's bigger than the United States?
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. That's the one we want to take over?
Yeah, well, I think that's the plan. But people only
How are the people in Greenland going to like it when they go from 23, 28 days of mandatory paid vacation to no mandatory paid vacation?
Yeah, they're going to be pretty bummed about that one if they become a U.S. territory. But anyway, yeah, the U.S. has the worst. So when you're working a job, you should definitely be, or if you're applying for a job, you should definitely look very closely at their PTO policy. I've worked a lot of places that didn't have one. They're just like, if you need time off, just ask. And that's basically the same thing as unlimited PTO. It's a scam. So you want to make sure that you have a good understanding before starting a job of what your PTO is. And as an employer, you should give good quality PTO. It's one of the number one benefits that you can give as an employer is a good PTO policy.
One thing I like about Germany is they work like 36 to 38 hours a week.
Mm-hmm.
Usually on Fridays, almost everybody leaves. They only work a half day.
Yeah, we've talked about doing that here too. I read a study. It said I think it's between Tuesday afternoon and Thursday morning. So the 1.5 or 2 days, that period is 80% of the work gets done then. Nothing happens on Monday. Nothing really happens Friday. And so really it's just the middle of the week that people actually get in gear and get work done.
I think we got to get out of this whole 9 to 5 thing.
Yeah, well, they've been proposing the 4-day work week. That's kind of a new thing, which a lot of companies are offering as a benefit.
I actually saw a school district in Oklahoma is going to a 4-day week.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, one of them.
What's the next one?
What are you seeing are some benefits that employees are asking for?
I'm going to talk about some that have nothing to do with me.
Okay.
Flex time, work from home. I'm reading a lot of articles. I talk to a lot of employees. That's a big differentiator for me in the marketplace is that my clients' employees have access to me. So I'm talking to employees all the time. And when the clients start saying we want people to come back in the office 2-3 days a week, I hear about it because people complain to me about it.
Yeah.
And that's one of the big things recently that people are asking for, the flex time or being able to continue to work remotely because so much changed during COVID.
It did.
Behind that, obviously, health insurance is the big driver, dental, vision, disability. I would rather somebody forego dental and disability, dental and vision insurance to get that disability insurance. Because like you said, I feel that it's so important for people to be a protection there.
So I think it's important to talk about the reason for benefits before we get into the video. Benefits are really designed to keep the employees happy and working for you. Payroll and the salary is not the most driving factor, especially once you get to a certain level. It's not the biggest reason that people stay. So these other kind of additional benefits are the reason that your good employees will stick around with you.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I think it's also something that a lot of small business owners don't calculate in when they're first calculating how much to charge for their goods and services, and they're not really thinking about what employees are going to cost with those additional benefits and everything. And if they did think about that and they price it into the price of their products, then when it comes time to have employees, they should have a pretty good buffer built up to be able to pay those benefits.
Right. Well, the first one he mentioned is honestly, it's a free benefit that employers can offer. It doesn't really cost you that much out of pocket, but being flexible on the schedule is a huge one, and being flexible about work from home, especially post-COVID.
Yeah, I think that we really got into this notion that people just have to always drive and gather together in a building to do work.
Yeah.
And COVID really did bring it home that just for most of these jobs, it's just not necessary.
I agree. I struggle with that personally, just as an employer, because I really like to see my employees doing something. I like to come into the office. I like to see them sitting there. I know crap's getting done. So as an employer, work from home kind of stinks for me. I would prefer they come to the office. And also me personally, even when I was working by myself, I had an office because I can't do crap at home. I end up playing video games or reading a book or watching a movie. I get distracted. So I needed a place to go to do my work.
Now, I do understand that. So I think it's a balance, but it is, I just saying, like I said, reiterating, COVID taught us, that there are a lot of jobs that people can do efficiently from home.
Oh, tons of jobs.
Getting their tasks done.
Yeah.
But you're right. There is a certain amount of I don't even want to say control, but there's a certain amount of
it might be a control issue. I might have control problems.
Well, it's control, but it's also a social issue, right? There's a social aspect to it. You want to be able to see somebody. You want to be able to pop into their office and say, "Hey, Jim, what's the deal with the report or something?"
Yeah, absolutely. But flexible hours, I think, is the easiest thing for a lot of employers to introduce easily and quickly. and it doesn't really cost you anything. Like if you can just give your employees the flexibility to take off to go to the bank or get something done during the day and, either come in early or leave a little late, it makes it much better for the employee.
Sure. I think that is a big thing, because there's a lot of services, for example, that have to get done before 5, but if you don't get off before 5, then what are you going to do?
Right. Yeah, you're screwed. All right. So offering benefits for employees as a small/new business. So I'm starting a home improvement/repair business with my dad. We'll be doing the majority of the work at first, but I'd like to add an employee before the first quarter is up. I'm thinking we'll end up with around 5 employees, but the 5-year goal is to have the business be a source of passive income so I can focus on purchasing/managing a farm. This guy's trying to do a lot. I'm interested in offering good single family health benefits, PTO, mileage and gas reimbursement, and maybe even 401k for these first 5 employees, including my father and me. The other things are company phones I'm considering. Right now, I'm more interested in finding and maintaining solid workers since we have some capital that can ground us for a while. Plus, it seems like it would be easier to start everyone off this way instead of implementing it down the road. What do you think?
I think this gentleman has a lot of calculation to do to make sure that he understands how much to charge, that he can afford these people and afford all these benefits.
Yeah, these benefits are not cheap.
And I would say that the first employee that he should be thinking of is a scheduler. Somebody that can take the calls, that can handle the calendar.
Yeah, it's a really neglected position in some of these home repair or trade jobs.
Yeah.
You really need that gatekeeper to keep
You
on
remember when
task.
we had Chad on from Cool Daddies?
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell you that Chad's life was miserable until he got Chastine, who is his scheduler.
Yeah.
And if she's not responsible for at least a 50% increase in his revenue, then I would be surprised. And I'll tell you why. Twice a year, like clockwork, I get a call from Chastine, and she says, it's time for your winter maintenance on your HVAC.
Mm-hmm.
What day is good for you?
Yeah.
Right? And in summer or fall or whatever, she's like, it's time for your fall maintenance. What day is good for you? I have Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday.
Yeah.
And I don't even have like time to think about whether I really want it or not.
Yeah.
I'm
just
like,
say yes.
Friday's fine.
Yeah.
And that's $600 right there. Boom.
Yep. Yeah, but
Every
it is
time.
something you need, and it's a good value.
It is.
Service.
It's something you need, but it's something that I myself would never call the HVAC guy and say, hey, is it time for you to come and deal with my AC?
Yeah. I think that's a great turtle tip, is just that scheduler or that gatekeeper really saves you a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they're not,
especially in this type of business.
Yeah, 100%. But in regards to just the benefits, so let's take these one by one. The single/family health benefits. Health benefits are I think third most important thing that you can offer your employees. The first being a good, reasonable, and living wage, like we talked about last time. The second being PTO. But the third is the health benefits. People will stay in jobs a very long time if you have a good health plan that is cheap to them or even free to them. We offer here a free health plan. We pay for the employee, and then if any spouse wants to be on it as well, then the employee pays for that. But we offer it free to the employee. And that's a huge benefit, I think, to a lot of our
Well, in America
employees.
especially, people they get tied to jobs they don't even like because the benefits are so good.
You're right. Yeah, exactly. So health insurance is a big one because everybody needs health insurance, and it's hard to get on your own outside of an employer, or now I guess the marketplace. It used to be impossible without the marketplace, but
Well, especially since one of the things with the marketplace is they can't deny you for pre-existing conditions anymore.
right.
Germany, I think, I speak about Germany a lot. I was there for 10 years. When I got out of the military, of course I had health insurance in the military. But when I got out of the military, right, I went to work there and I had health insurance. And I didn't even know what health insurance was necessarily. Like in the military, you don't have health insurance. You just
Go to the
have
doctor.
Doctors.
Yeah.
You have a mandatory checkup you have to do every year, and you have to, they take care of you.
Mm-hmm.
But on the economy, which is what it's called, is over there, everyone must have health insurance regardless. The only difference is that if you make over a certain amount, then you can choose a private company which can offer you better conditions, but they can't offer you any less than the public health insurance.
Yeah.
And if you make less than a certain amount, at least is how it was back then you have to be on one of the two public insurance health companies. But then you're not tied to a job.
Yeah.
Per se over there, right? Because of benefits.
Yeah, your health insurance can move.
Right. Your health insurance moves with you.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great thing over there.
I agree with you, but that's not how it works in the States.
Right. Now here, like in the pool room, right? I tell everybody, I say, you guys, you don't make enough you make enough.
You make
the
enough
amount you make is enough to qualify for the Affordable Health Care Act, right? The ACA, or otherwise known as Obamacare. So I encourage them to get that.
Right.
Because I, in that business, cannot afford to pay for their health insurance.
Right. Well, and it's not typical for a single location restaurant or bar to offer health insurance to their employees. It's more of a services company, a professional company, a trade company with, that kind of thing. Those retail stores, restaurants, and bars, they typically don't offer it. And as a small business owner, you are not required to give a business plan unless you have more than 50 employees. But it is one of the best benefits you can give. Dental and vision are also great add-ons that you can put on there, and they're very inexpensive. We pay like $35 a month for dental and $15 for vision. So it's a great little extra add-on you can do.
That's great.
Now, PTO we've already discussed kind of in length, but that's one of the best benefits you can have is have a good, competitive paid time off policy. Mileage and gas reimbursement. This is sometimes mandatory depending on what industry you're in, especially if you're making people drive their own cars. But you can either do a direct reimbursement of the fuel or sometimes you end up having to do the mileage, which can get expensive. It's like 67 cents.
That's a big one because, I've noticed that a lot of the people around me, when they start looking for a job, they end up taking jobs sometimes that are 50 miles away from where they live. And I'm like, how can you even sustain that?
Yeah, and that's tough. It's tough, especially if they don't have some type of reimbursement, which a lot of them don't, and they're not required to, especially on the portal to portal. Portal to portal meaning from your home to the place of work, the employer does not have any requirement to pay you for that. Or your time, your commuted time.
Yeah, because that's not up. They could just as easily hire someone that's a mile away.
The 401k, I think we've all kind of heard of before. We've talked about it on here before, but that's a very common investment one where they take a little money from your check and they put it into a investment account for you. The real benefit of this, because you could just do it on your own if they weren't matching, but the real benefit is the matching. The company should match a portion of whatever they take, and it's usually up to 3, 4, 5%. So if you're putting in $100 a month, the company is also putting in $100 a month. That's a free $100 for you, basically. Company phones is one of those things that some companies do, but really only if it's needed. We do it for a few people, but they're business phones. There's a lot of other benefits that you can look at, but in my opinion, this person is doing way too much right at the beginning. It's going to cost a fortune to have a health plan for 5 employees, a good competitive PTO policy, a good mileage and gas, and a good 401k, all for 5 employees, and he hasn't even hired anyone yet. Usually you piecemeal these on as you hire people, and you
that's why I said
he
needs to be doing a lot more calculation.
Mm-hmm.
So if him and his dad are going to do the work at first, that's fine. But they need to be looking at that work and saying, would this work that we're doing for the amount that we're getting, would it pay for 2 other people to do that with all of these benefits?
Right.
And if not, then he needs to work on figuring out whether he can even charge enough to offer that.
Right. There's also things called like cafeteria plans, and then there's some very specific small business health insurance plans and benefits packages that you can look at if you want to try to do some 401k or IRA. there's a lot of options for small businesses. So
Are
do your
there
research.
Are there services that basically will handle all these things for a small business?
Yeah, there's a lot of small business or a lot of services that will help. Right now, a lot of them are kind of fragmented. Turtlesmith, though, if you're in the Oklahoma City area, you can come here. We can help you with all of that.
Okay.
But there are several people that do just health benefits. They can set you up with a company plan. There's other companies or payroll companies that can help with 401k, retirement savings, and those kind of things.
Now,
Paycom and Paychecks.
In a bigger
they do all
company,
that.
would that be the HR department that handles that?
It would. Yep, the HR department's the one that handles all of that stuff. Yeah, absolutely. But you, as a small business owner, you're the HR department too. So
Okay.
it's good to get outside.
Well, if
help.
you're in the Oklahoma City area, Turtlesmith can be your HR department.
100%. Yeah, we can definitely help with that. What's the next one? First time owner here. Is health insurance benefit for employees a standard? So, hi all. I own a standalone mom and pop coffee shop that has been open for 2 years now. Business is good, and we are just at the point where we are pretty much breaking even. Up until now, I have been covering all managerial duties such as scheduling, hiring, administration, and I'm looking to hire a manager so I can free up time to focus on developing and expanding the business. Interviewed and sent an offer to a great candidate who was qualified and enthusiastic, but turned that offer down due to lack of health insurance benefits. Unfortunately, we have never had it in the budget to provide that to employees. So I want to know how common it is for mom and pop operations like mine to offer health insurance to employees at such an early stage. It's very uncommon.
Yeah, I'd say it is uncommon, and we get back to my previous point, which is if this is something that you know people want and something you know people need, then you need to be factoring that into your business model.
You do. The problem is with some of these deals is that in the States, if you offer benefit packages to one of your employees, you have to offer it to all of them. So in this instance, it would be great if I could say, well, now they're a manager. So as part of their salary and as part of your budgeting for their salary, you could take into account, I'm going to also pay for their health insurance. So if you pay them, let's say $40,000 a year, you think, all right, it's going to be $400 a year or a month for insurance. You're paying them $45,000 a year, and that's what you budget for the salary. But now you have to do that for all your employees. You can't have a different plan for different employees.
I mean, that makes sense.
And so it becomes very difficult for small mom and pop shops like this to have.
So
different packages.
this is also one of those things where I would tell small business owners, which, surprisingly, a lot of them don't seem to know this. Go look at the ACA and what they offer. Mm-hmm. Because as you said, if you're under 50 employees, you do not have to have you're not required to offer health insurance.
Right.
Now, a lot of times when you're small, like you said, a mom and pop coffee shop and so on, you're not going to be able to afford the amount that you're going to be able to afford to pay people generally is going to be well below the amount needed to get subsidies for health insurance.
Right.
So your employees may qualify for full subsidies,
Mm-hmm.
Which basically is just to break off their taxes, and get health insurance that way.
That is possible. You can also offer, like, we can't pay for your health insurance directly, but we could pay an extra $300 a month so you can go get your own health insurance.
Right.
Something like that works as well. You'll notice too, there's always or maybe you've heard before, but like how sometimes people have trouble getting hours at larger companies, and that's specifically because of the health insurance benefits. You can offer health insurance benefits or different benefits to full-time employees versus part-time employees. And so you can hire a bunch of people that are working like your C-suite or your management, give them all the good benefits, as long as all the lower workers,
right,
they don't work full-time, they have to work less than 30 hours.
That's why companies like Walmart and stuff cut their people's hours to like 38, 37 hours or something like that, so they fall under that threshold.
They don't qualify for the benefits, which
Yeah.
is very nefarious, and I'm not saying that you should do that, but that is an option for some small businesses to have part-time versus full-time employees.
Now, for this
and
person,
offering
that wouldn't have
different
been
benefits.
something because their candidate turned them down because of lack of health insurance.
Right. And I think that would just be that. Honestly, you could probably have a conversation with them about it. Maybe we could give you a little extra pay to pay for your own health insurance, and maybe that would have sealed the deal in this particular case. But yeah, health insurance, again, I think it's the third most important. Having good salary or good wages, a good PTO, and then health insurance. That's the third biggest benefit that keeps good employees.
My last question on this, she says, overall, my question is, do small, not yet profitable businesses like mine usually offer health benefits? If you're not profitable right now, then where are you going to find the money to pay for the extra?
Yeah, exactly. But they also say they've been open for 2 years now, which is a little concerning. You should be churning a profit in most businesses by that 2-year mark. 18 months is usually where you should try to budget.
At this point, we're pretty much breaking even. If they're just now breaking even and that's it, they don't even have enough money to hire someone, in my opinion.
And we don't know what this means. They may be paying themselves a certain amount, and then maybe they're going to give up some of their wage to hire somebody in so that they can work on expanding. But yeah, this is it sounds like they're struggling a little on a couple different aspects.
Yeah, they would have to. She would have to give up, but they would have to give up some of their pay to pay for a manager, I'd say.
Maybe.
Unless there's factors we don't know about.
Well, they also say they're going to work on developing and expanding, so maybe they're going to take a loss for a little while in order to make it up in the later runs.
Could be.
But the benefits here, the health insurance, the answer to this is it is not common for a mom-and-pop operation to have health insurance. And that's the real answer. Unfortunately, in America, small businesses rarely have good health benefits. And it's something that you should really try to get incorporated as quick as possible.
Once again, I really do recommend, if you're a small business owner in a similar situation as this, that you really go and read about the Affordable Health Care Act.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're an employee, I suggest you also read about it, because that is a way to get pretty good health insurance for actually not much money, especially if you're younger. It can be almost fully subsidized depending on what your income is.
It can. Sometimes it eats into your refund a little sometimes. But
it can, but
it's better to have health insurance. Better to have health insurance. So, well, anyway, just to kind of recap on this episode, benefits are really, the whole point of it is just to keep your good employees there and to decrease turnover. If you have a great benefits package on top of a good living wage, you're going to keep your key and great employees happy for quite a long time.
What are some other benefits that you can think of that you have that either you've offered or heard about that are kind of unusual?
Unusual ones. I mean, the flexibility in schedule is typically unusual depending on what kind of industry you're in, but it really is great for employees. Working from home when available is another really great one. And then just a lot of little stuff is great. The pity pizza party that like you hear these big corporations do is kind of terrible, but I like to sometimes, if we have a great month, I'll have a little extra cash on hand. I'll just give a bonus right there, a spot bonus for, hey, we had a great month. Try to buy lunch once in a while, little things, really creating a good company culture.
I've heard of things like wellness, like every quarter or every 6 months or so, you give employees a retreat.
Yeah, that can be a
something
thing.
like that. I've heard of employers who will pay you to learn a hobby.
Yeah, there's also educational benefits. Like sometimes people will pay for you to get higher education, or even student loan paybacks is a big one. I know a lot of companies do that. But again, small businesses struggle to afford that kind of thing.
See, and I made that part of my pay package when I went to work for one of my former customers after I sold my first company.
They had to pay some of your student loans?
Yeah, they ended up paying them off altogether.
Nice.
Because I made that part of the situation. I said, well, this is what I need.
Yeah.
And they agreed.
Yeah, and as an employee, don't forget that you can negotiate your salary. Like, you don't have to accept what they say. You can negotiate the paid time off. You can negotiate your salary with them. You can negotiate your benefits packages, whatever you want. I mean, the worst they say is no, but depending on your skill set and your bargaining power, don't be afraid.
You get 0% of what you don't ask for.
Yeah, that's a great one. Yeah. So, any final thoughts on benefits?
No, I don't have any thoughts.
Okay. Well, I'm going to just say, top important one besides a living wage: PTO, health insurance, flexible work schedule, work from home, and then all the other great benefits below that.
I do have one more thing.
Mm-hmm.
Baby oil is not a benefit.
Good Lord. It had to come up. It had to come up.
It's in the news. What can I say?
It's just living in your mind.
It's not living in my mind. It's in the news.
Is that what we're gonna start?
I'm saying
having?
if your boss tells you that you have access to an unlimited supply of baby oil,
Just quit the job.
run.
Yeah, just quit.
Like, do not accept that offer.
Yeah. Terrible. All right. Well, you can all of our social media is Turtlesmith OK, and you can find us at turtlesmith.com. And if you need help with HR, give us a call, shoot us an email. We can sort you out.
All right. Thanks.
This is always annoying to ask, but if you're liking this content, please like and subscribe. It's the best way for us to get more followers and more people engaged in this great business content. You can also follow us on all socials at Turtlesmith OK and find us at turtlesmith.com.
Please like and subscribe.